private money in college football and what that looks like and how important it is. And, we had an exclusive last week on the show about how the Big Ten and the SEC are looking at ways to create their own new football entity that would essentially be a super league. And we're going to talk about this in a bit, where they would bring college football together and have an NFL style, an NFL model super league funded by, in large part, private capital firms. That got us thinking here on the show, well, if the SEC and the Big Ten are working behind the scenes, who else is? So we began doing some digging, and we have been able to confirm through multiple sources that television networks have, in fact, had in-person meetings with private capital firms to talk about television's role in a super league, and mainly would major television networks be willing to alter their current broadcast agreements with conferences, with the college football playoff, etc. ESPN, Fox, CBS, NBC, we are told by multiple television industry sources, have met with private capital firms. So what does this mean, and why is this significant? It's significant because it means behind the scenes, there are conversations happening at the highest levels of power in college football to move a college football super league closer to fruition. I am told unequivocally TV networks have an appetite and an interest in the college football super league. I am told without a doubt, and ESPN and ABC, Disney are the main stakeholders here in the college football playoff. I am told without a doubt by industry sources that ABC and ESPN, that the heads at Disney are willing to open their contract. They are willing to negotiate a deal where they remain the primary provider of the biggest games in college football. But yes, they're absolutely willing to open their contracts to facilitate a college football super league inside of the dates that currently span their college football playoff contracts. That's significant because that's one of the biggest questions. Can you have a college football super league during the current TV contracts? And the answer is absolutely you can, because the TV networks are open to it. And the fact that these TV networks and every major television partner of college football has had meetings, we are told, with capital investment firms specifically talking about what a college football super league would look like, what TV's role in it would be, what private equity's role in it would be. I think that is absolutely as close, Jake, as we have ever been to getting confirmation that, yeah, there is a college football league being worked on behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And I think this relationship between, the private money firms and the different entities inside of college football is the story. I mean, you look at, again, these different groups, standing in the room, and what do we need? We need television networks to be willing to play ball and to be willing to adjust things and be willing to acquiesce and negotiate and put something together that works for them. We then need the major Power Four conferences to be willing to do this and to want to do this. And obviously we have that. And then obviously you need private money. And so these three things together, allow you to push this forward. And I think that, a lot of times, like the last several shows, we've talked about how, whether it is whatever network you want to look at, everyone always thinks, oh, well, these networks are, they're all competing, and it's this sort of cesspool, and like ESPN and Fox and CBS all hate each other, and
it's a blood feud. People will die,
right? Like that's what people think of these TV networks. They think that they're at each other's throats and just trying to kill each other. And it's like, no, dude. Like what ultimately with college football specifically, what's best for one is probably best for the other. They need to push it forward. They need to work together to have synergy to push it forward, because what ultimately, and we've talked about this a ton on the show, we need to have more synergy in college football in terms of how it's broadcasted. We need that relationship between college football and the NFL in terms of the college football championship on Saturday, the Super Bowl on Sunday. We right now, as an example, we know, okay, hey, the SEC is going to be on ESPN. That big time SEC game is going to be on ESPN at night. We know that the Big Ten and Fox have their situation, and then Fox has some coverage in the Big 12. And I look at this and I sit here and I say, listen, this can get easier for the consumer. This can get more streamlined. This can get more enjoyable to watch. This can become a better product if everyone in the room just works together to push it forward. And I think that, for me anyway, is kind of the sentiment right now. Like these private money equity firms that we've been talking about understand business. These guys are titans of business and understand what it takes.
Well, I think when you look at the fact that you're playing in a pond where there's billions of dollars in the TV side of this, in the broadcast side of this, there is billions of dollars in the private capital side of this. There's no doubt. You've got to find a way how to leverage that money to make the most money. And I think one of the things that a lot of people don't consider is, what do private capital firms do? They take money and they make more money with it. Private capital firms are not in the business of hanging on to the billions of dollars that have been placed in their trust. They need to put that money on the street and make more money with it. And one of the ways that these private capital firms want to do that is by investing in college athletics. It is a big deal. We've seen this across the board in pro sports already. If you look at what we've seen in, whether it be European football, in the Premier League, in the Italian League, Redbird Capital, I think it's AC Milan that Redbird Capital has a large piece of. You look at those situations, you look at the National Football League, selling minority shares in their clubs. That's private capital. It makes money. That's why they're giving their millions and billions of dollars in professional sports. College football is not unique in that. College football will make private capital firms more millions and billions of dollars. And the question is, for private capital, and I do think private capital is going to have to be the one to bring everybody to the table, to be a unifier, if you will. How do you get the TV networks, the conferences, and private capital to the table and make a deal that benefits everybody? That's not the easiest thing to do. But what now do we have confirmation of? That private capital has met with universities, conferences, and now TV networks. All the stakeholders are doing one thing similarly. That is talking to private capital firms. And I think what that tells you is that there is a pretty significant appetite to get a Super League done. And I think one of the things that we really need to pay attention to, and I know that people freak out when I say Donald Trump's name. What is Donald Trump likely to do today? And if not today, in the coming days, he's going to sign an executive order to eliminate the Department of Education, which is going to have a significant impact on the way business is done at the college level. Change is afoot. There is all kinds of doors opening. I think a college football Super League happens because, remember, I think we're talking about the college football playoff TV contract is extended through what, 20, 31, and 32 now. On this last extension they just signed. So you have this ACC deal where Florida State fan has said that they don't have a grant of rights because it was abolished, which it wasn't. Florida State probably doesn't leave the ACC until 2030. Like, do some math here, man. All of these new grant of rights, all of these new broadcast deals, they go beyond the next 5 years. I am telling you, the single biggest question, are TV networks willing to open up their contracts and facilitate a college football Super League? And I was told by multiple sources yesterday they are absolutely willing to do that.
Yeah, and I just don't know what reason they would have not to want to do it. I mean, you think about what a TV network needs to thrive, and what they need is a reason for people to watch outside of the fact that it's just football, right? I mean, obviously, there is a baseline viewership level for, the different tiers of football that everyone's come to know. But if you said to a TV executive, hey, like, we're trying to put together, a Super League, this new league, if you will, this new product, essentially, and in order to do that, we're going to have to open up these contracts here, and we're going to have to make sure you guys are good with it. And, it's going to be the shiny new car in the room as far as the viewer is concerned. So I'm not at all surprised to hear that the TV networks are, maybe saying they're excited about it is too strong, but just that they are open to it. They want to talk about it. They want to work on it. I'm not surprised by that at all. I think the only question is how does what you're trying to do compare to what we have now? and how does that change who benefits at what level? Because that's what it comes down to.
And I think the very fact, to your point, the very fact that TV networks are meeting with private capital firms, what does that tell you? Because I also was told yesterday, without asking, and generally how conversations, to take you behind the curtain, how conversations with sources happen are, hey, I'll send a guy I know a text and say, hey, I'm asking you this question. Can you call me real quick? Or, hey, I need to ask you a question. Can you call me real quick? Because most people won't do anything in writing. Most people you're talking to won't do anything in writing.
Yeah.
When you're talking to conference presidents, athletic directors, all of their text messages and emails are public record. They're TV networks. Anybody that we're talking about, agents, all of their stuff is they don't put it in writing, which I totally understand. So they'll call you, you'll call them, and you'll say, hey, I'm calling you because I've heard X, Y, and Z. And you just start having this conversation. And most of the time, if you just shut up and listen, you're going to get far more out of anything at that conversation than asking a question. Because all you have to do is kind of say, hey, like yesterday, the question I asked was, hey, I'm curious, what have you heard about ESPN and Fox being open to a college football super league? And multiple people said to me, well, they're meeting with private capital firms. Like it's a known thing. And I said, is that known? Is that widely known? No, because it's only happened in the last few weeks. And then what was the first name that came up? Well, the PIF has met with Disney on multiple fronts. So is it at all surprising that the largest private capital fund in the world, it wants to invest in college football? It's not surprising.
No,
it's not surprising. And I think when you look at the Weatherfords or the Redbirds or whatever private capital firm you want to point to, those guys are not in business to hang on to their money. They don't want to just have it sitting in an escrow account. They need to put that money on the street and make more money on it. The PIF, which, for those you don't know, is the Saudi government's, the Saudi royalties public investment firm. They take their oil money, essentially. They give it to the PIF, and the PIF puts it out into, again, European football. Obviously, Live Golf is a big one for them. Formula One is a big one for them. Like, they put money into sports across the globe. And so now you're in a position where arguably the biggest sport in the world, American football, arguably, has an opportunity for private capital. Nobody's going to say no to that because it's a moneymaker.
Yeah, there's just too much opportunity. And,
yes.
I think that, I inside of this conversation, something that also comes to mind is the behavior the NFL has shown in the past, I would say, like 2 to 3 years, trying to turn their league into a global league. We're seeing a lot more games in Germany and London. And, obviously we had the one in Mexico, but that was kind of a disaster. Like, like you look at what the NFL is trying to do, and it's kind of up the same alley in the sense of they're trying to expand their game globally. They want that European market. They want these other markets to be involved. And I feel like for college football, this is kind of a similar thing where you're sure every college football fan, a serious college football fan, is focused on the restructuring. Hey, how does this, what's the league look like? What teams are in it? Who's not in it? But maybe it's more of a conversation about, hey, if we can get investment on a global scale in college football, what does that allow us to do? How does that allow us to improve the game? Get more, whether it's ad partners or whatever, like more innovation in the game. Like I think that's been the thing that's kind of hamstrung college football so far, is that we got, like, as an example, the Florida State Georgia Tech situation this past season, starting to play overseas games, right? We're looking at
Big 12 in Mexico.
Big 12 in Mexico, right? So like we're seeing college and NFL football reach into the global markets and try to form those relationships. So it should be no surprise to anybody that on, following that, on the heels of that, we have a lot of conversation and smoke building up to this fire that is private money getting involved to push the sport forward. And I just think the only thing college football can't do is you can't, mess this up. You can't do something that would make the product worse than it is now. What it has to be, the absolute must have is create something that lights a fire under the asses of the college football fan base. Hey, we got this new thing.
Yeah.
Come and watch, come out, show out. That's what you need to do.
Yeah. So I think this is a big story. The private capital firms meeting with television networks is not new. Private capital firms meeting with television networks to talk about a college football super league is absolutely new.
Yeah.
And it is an indicator of how far down the road the conversation has gone. And this Department of Education thing, that's a big flipping deal, man. Because that's going to impact everything from Title IX to the way that universities get money from the federal government, the subsidies, the grant programs. Like, it is a big, big deal. Change is constant in the college world right now. And it's going to be fascinating to watch how this goes. And as far as TV networks go, I think the way that we all watch TV has already changed. I mean,
Right.
You look at what DirecTV's offering DirecTV's essentially got one of the best streaming packages in the business with their sports bundle. You've got, whether it's YouTube TV, whether it is Netflix getting into all kinds of live sports bidding. The way we watch sports on television has forever changed.
Well, and I think DirecTV is a great example of it. I mean, look at what DirecTV's business was built on. The golden era of DirecTV was having the NFL Sunday Ticket and having a product or a way to get that onto people's TVs that people could pretty much access anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I how many times did we move and it was like, hey, let's call DirecTV up real quick. We'll get the guy out here. He'll set up the satellite for us and get that dialed in, and we're good to go. Like that. And now, because of the cell phone and the internet, DirecTV has made this shift now, understanding, hey, consumers watch TV differently now. And they have a great product. They really do. And I feel like it's not talked about enough. But I just think DirecTV is a good example of the change that we're kind of talking about in college football right now.
But I also think here's another question. And I was talking to a guy about this yesterday. What does somebody like Amazon do here? Because if you're Amazon Prime, you already have the NFL. You're probably getting into the NBA business on a much larger scale. You have Major League Baseball. Like, you have a good, robust sports presence. Are you trying to get into the college football world? I have to believe that you are. We've heard that they were heavily in talks with the Pac-12 before that melted down.
Yeah.
But you know, and I know, that the major sports streamer is ESPN. How do you, if you are Amazon and a Super League happens, how do you get your hands on that? If you are Netflix, if you are anybody.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at Amazon, you look at the stance they've taken so far, the strategy they've taken so far, in my opinion, is they're not looking to own the entirety of something. What they want is they want the highest profile piece of the bigger picture.
They want a slice of the pie.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
They want a real big, high profile situation happening, which is why they've got Thursday Night Football and they've got, the other offerings they have. And I think with the college football playoff, this is the question. This is kind of what I was alluding to earlier. If you create a super league and you have a new playoff structure, if you will, how does that new playoff structure, how sellable is it? How many games can you pack into a college football playoff situation? Honestly, that's what makes the NFL so great is it's just such a clean cut playoff model, a playoff bracket. And it makes it really easy for TV partners to understand, okay, well, hey, this is the marquee playoff game of the week. This would be the number 2. This would be the number 3. And I feel like in college football, we've got so many damn teams and so many matchups that it's really hard to do that and sell it.
It is one of the biggest concerns that people have about college football. How do you streamline it into a money-making opportunity that realizes its full financial potential.
Yeah.
That is something that is talked about on a regular basis at universities, conferences, and in the NCAA offices.
If there was anybody that was going to figure it out, though, it'd be these people.
It would be.
I will say that.
Because it's not accidental that we told you they were going to an NFL model.
Mm-hmm.
We've told you that they're going to have a championship game on a Saturday in college and a Super Bowl on Sunday, or maybe one weekend, because you're not playing the Pro Bowl anymore, essentially.
Right.
One weekend is for college football. The next weekend is for the Super Bowl. Like, they're going to build it around each other so that they don't compete.
Mm-hmm.
It is as simple as that. And I think when you look at these streamers, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult because of the long-term commitment and leverage that ESPN and Disney have on the college football playoff. It is going to be very difficult for Amazon or anybody that's not in business with ESPN. Again, DirecTV, you're obviously getting ESPN on DirecTV.
Yeah.
YouTube TV, you're getting ESPN. But if you're Netflix or you're Amazon Prime or whoever, you're going to have a tough time getting a big slice of the college football pie. I think it's going to be very difficult because you already, like, Peacock's a very interesting example.
Right.
Peacock's already got a stream-only NFL playoff game. That's already happening. And you look at YouTube TV, they've got every channel. DirecTV's got every channel. So the question is, how do these streamers get involved in that? That's, to me, because there's money there. There's no question there's money there. It's, does ESPN want to open up essentially its exclusive on the college football playoff and give some of that up? And I don't think the answer is yes. I think ESPN's not in the business to share their plate of food.
Yeah, and I would also say to that end, I think a consideration for any of these folks, on the streaming side, like, the Peacocks, ESPN, whoever you want to point to, is consumer fatigue with paying for all the different services. I mean, I can tell you right now, I didn't watch the game on Peacock.
Neither did I.
I didn't,
and I have a Peacock subscription.
Yeah, see, like, I don't even have that subscription. See, that's even crazier that you have one and you didn't watch it.
But I get Peacock free through Amex, so
But my point is you have access and you still didn't watch it.
No,
right?
I didn't.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is, like, when you really dive into this, there's so many layers here to work through to make something happen. But I do feel like it makes too much sense not to do it. And there's too much upside potential not to put it together. And my only other question would be, who is going to be on, is it, as an example, is it Greg Sankey driving this ship from the university side with, these firms, or what is that inevitably going to look like?